I thought it was just a nice family dinner. Turns out, it was an ambush to tell me I wasn't invited to the family vacation I paid for. Stay with me till the end, because this one still feels unreal every time I think about it. I remember that evening so clearly. I had just finished a long shift at the lab and rushed home to change before heading to my parents' house. It was a warm Friday night, and I actually felt excited. We hadn't had a proper family dinner in months. Mom said she wanted everyone together before our trip to Maui, the one I had worked so hard to plan. When I walked in, everything looked normal. The table was set, candles lit, my mom smiling in that tight, polite way she does when something's off. Dad gave me a quick hug, but didn't really look at me. My brother Evan was there too, scrolling through his phone, and his fiancée Hannah sat next to him, acting like she owned the place. We started eating, but the whole dinner felt strange. Nobody was talking much, and every time I tried to bring up the trip, the hotel, the beaches, the food, Mom just changed the subject. My stomach twisted a little, but I told myself I was overthinking. Then, halfway through dinner, Mom put down her fork and looked at me with that fake calm voice she uses before saying something cruel. "Delaney," she said softly, "we need to talk about the trip." I smiled, thinking maybe they wanted to surprise me with something. But then Dad sighed and said, "You're not coming." I actually laughed, waiting for the punchline. But no one laughed with me. Hannah looked down at her plate, smirking. Mom continued, "It's just better for the family this way. There's been too much tension lately. Maybe next time." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. "What do you mean I'm not coming? I paid for everything. The flights, the hotel, everything is in my name." Evan finally spoke up, not even meeting my eyes. "We'll pay you back eventually. It's just easier this way." I felt my chest burn. My own family, the people I loved and trusted, had just cut me out of something I built for all of us. Mom's final words still ring in my head. "Don't make this a big deal, Delaney. It's just a vacation." I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out without another word. As I closed the door behind me, I realized something painful. They didn't just leave me out of the trip. They had already decided I didn't belong in the family anymore. It all started months before that awful dinner. Back then, everything felt hopeful. I had just received my first big work bonus from the lab, and I wanted to do something special for my family. We'd been through so much, arguments, cold silences, years of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I thought maybe a trip together could fix things. So I called my parents one night and said, "What if I paid for a family vacation? Somewhere warm, just us?" Mom gasped. I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Oh, Delaney, that's so generous," she said, her tone softening for the first time in months. Dad sounded proud, and even Evan texted me later saying, "That's awesome, sis. We really need this." For the first time in a long while, it felt like maybe we were a real family again. We chose Maui because Mom always talked about wanting to see the beaches there. I handled everything, researching hotels, comparing flights, calling travel agents after work. When I finally made the $9,200 payment with my own card, Mom actually cried on the phone. She said I was bringing the family back together. I remember smiling through tears, thinking it was worth every cent. Then came Hannah. She was Evan's fiancée, perfect hair, perfect nails, always recording something for her followers. The kind of person who said things like, "I could never work in a lab, all that sterile lighting would ruin my skin." She was polite at first, but I could feel her judgment in every fake smile. During family dinners, she'd talk about luxury experiences and subtly suggest we stay in more expensive places. When I mentioned the budget, she said, "Oh, but you can afford it now, can't you?" In that sugary tone that made me feel small. I brushed it off, telling myself she didn't mean harm. I created a group chat for planning: Mom, Dad, Evan, and Hannah. At first, everyone was excited. We shared links, ideas, countdowns. But slowly, things began to change. Messages started appearing that I wasn't included in. I'd hear Mom mention hotel updates I hadn't heard about. When I asked, she'd say, "Oh, Hannah found a better deal," or "We're just trying to make things smoother." Still, I tried to stay positive. I told myself they were helping. But deep down, I started to feel invisible. I'd open my phone and see new photos of them meeting up for trip prep dinners I wasn't invited to. I laughed it off at first, saying I was too busy anyway. But it hurt. The last straw came when I checked my email one morning and saw a forwarded message from the travel agency. It mentioned updated reservations, but my name wasn't on the list anymore. That's when I felt the first real sting of betrayal. I had paid for everything, yet somehow I was already being written out. The signs were small at first, easy to ignore. An email chain that didn't include me. A hotel booking that suddenly changed because it was more convenient. Every time I asked why, Mom would say, "Oh, honey, don't worry about the details. Just trust the process." She said it so sweetly that it almost sounded harmless. Almost. Dad wasn't any help either. Whenever I mentioned how things felt off, he'd just smile and say, "You know your mother just wants to help. She gets carried away sometimes." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think my family would never deliberately leave me out of something I'd worked so hard for. But deep down, something felt wrong. Hannah didn't make it easier. She'd drop little hints, pretending they were jokes. "You know, maybe it would be better if you stayed back to watch the pets," she said once while sipping her smoothie, not even looking up from her phone. "You've always been the responsible one, Delaney. We'd trust you with the house." She laughed after saying it, but her eyes told a different story. Evan didn't defend me. He just sat there, scrolling, pretending not to hear. My own brother, the same kid I helped with his college essays, was acting like I didn't exist. I wanted to ask him what happened to us, but every time I looked at him, I saw Hannah's influence written all over his face. Weeks passed, and the exclusion became harder to ignore. I'd find out about new plans through casual mentions, like Mom saying, "Oh, we moved to a different resort because Hannah found a better one." I'd ask, "Wasn't our booking already confirmed?" And she'd just wave her hand. "Don't worry, it's all taken care of." I checked the travel app one night, just to see. The reservation details had changed completely. New dates, new hotel, and a new contact number. Not mine. When I called the agency, the woman on the line said, "Oh yes, your mother requested the update. Everything's under her coordination now." My heart sank. My name had been slowly erased from everything I paid for. Still, I tried to convince myself it was all a misunderstanding. Families don't do this to each other, right? I sent a message in the family group chat. "Hey, can we go over the final plan together? I just want to make sure everything's okay." No one replied. Hours later, I got a single thumbs up from Hannah. That was it. Then came the final blow. One morning, I opened my inbox and saw an email, a forwarded message from Dad by accident. It had the final itinerary attached. I opened it, and there it was: Evan Quinn, Margot Quinn, Tom Quinn, Hannah Miller. My name wasn't there. I just sat staring at the screen, realizing they had made their decision. The trip I built for them was happening, just without me. The moment they told me I wasn't coming on the trip, something inside me cracked. I stared at my family, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was a joke gone too far. But no one did. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the wall clock and the soft clinking of Hannah's fork against her plate. I swallowed hard. "You're not serious, right? You're telling me I can't go on the trip I paid for." My voice shook, but I tried to sound calm. Mom sighed like she was the victim here. "Delaney, it's just easier this way. Things have been tense lately, and we don't want any drama during the vacation. You'll get your chance next year, okay?" I blinked at her, confused and furious. "My chance? Mom, I paid $9,000 for this trip. I planned it, I booked it, Dad interrupted softly, not even looking at me. "Delaney, please. Let's not make this harder than it has to be. The reservations have already been changed." I froze. "What do you mean, changed?" He hesitated. "Your mother talked to the agency. Everything's finalized." My stomach twisted. I turned to my brother. "Evan, say something. You know this isn't fair." He shifted uncomfortably, eyes glued to his plate. "Look, we'll pay you back eventually. Just don't start something tonight." That was it. Eventually. As if my money, my effort, my love meant nothing. My hands were trembling under the table. "You're all okay with this? You really think this is fine?" Hannah finally spoke, pretending to sound sweet. "Delaney, it's not personal. Sometimes energy just doesn't mix well on trips, you know? Maybe this is for the best." Her words hit me like a slap. Mom nodded in agreement, like she hadn't just betrayed her own daughter. "She's right, honey. We want this to be peaceful. You can stay here and relax." My vision blurred. I felt tears burning at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You all used me," I whispered. "You let me pay for everything and then decided I wasn't good enough to come." Dad rubbed his temples. "Delaney, don't make this into something ugly." I stood up, pushing my chair back so hard it scraped the floor. "It's already ugly," I said quietly. "You made it that way." No one moved. No one said a word as I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. Just as I reached it, Mom's voice floated after me. Don't make this a big deal. I stopped for half a second, my back still turned to them. Then I opened the door and stepped out into the cold night air. The moment it shut behind me, I realized the truth. They didn't just cancel a trip. They canceled me. The days after that dinner felt like living in a fog. I kept waiting for my phone to ring, for someone to realize how wrong it all was. But no one called. No one even texted to check if I was okay. It was as if I had been erased from the family overnight. I spent that weekend pacing around my apartment, replaying every word from that dinner in my head. It's just easier this way. Those words made my stomach twist every time I thought about them. I had tried to be the one to fix things, to bring the family together, and somehow, I ended up the problem they wanted to get rid of. On Monday, I finally decided to do something practical. I called the credit card company, explaining that I'd paid for a family trip, but was no longer included. I hoped they could reverse the charges or freeze the booking. The woman on the line was polite but firm. Since the payment and the booking were authorized under your name, and the services were delivered as confirmed, there's nothing we can do. I sat there, numb, staring at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I had just lost $9,200, and worse, my family didn't care. That night, my best friend Jade came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. She didn't say anything at first, just listened while I told her everything. When I finally stopped talking, she looked at me and said, "You can't let them get away with this." "I don't even know what to do," I admitted. "They've already changed everything. It's like I don't exist." Jade leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Then make them remember you do. They used you, Delaney. That's not family. That's manipulation. You've got to fight back." Her words lit something inside me, a small, burning spark that started to grow. But before I could even think about what that meant, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Evan. Just one line. "Don't ruin this for everyone." I stared at it for a long time. No apology, no explanation, just a warning. My own brother, the one I helped pay rent for when he was struggling, had the nerve to tell me not to ruin their stolen vacation. I deleted his message and blocked his number without replying. For the rest of that week, I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up angry, go to work angry, come home angry. The silence from my parents made it worse. I wasn't just hurt, I was humiliated. They had taken my kindness and turned it into a joke. But Jade was right. They thought I would stay quiet, that I'd accept being left out. They didn't know me at all. One night, as I sat alone on my couch, I made a promise to myself. They were going to regret underestimating me. It was Jade who reminded me that just because they betrayed me didn't mean I was powerless. A week after that horrible dinner, she came over again, dragging along her friend Leah, a woman who used to work in travel management. I didn't know it yet, but that meeting would change everything. We sat around my kitchen table, papers and receipts spread everywhere. I showed them every email, every booking confirmation, and the final payment statement from the travel agency. Leah studied them carefully, flipping through the pages with sharp eyes. After a while, she looked up at me and said, "Delaney, do you realize all of this is still under your name?" I frowned. "What do you mean? They already changed everything." She shook her head. "They can't. Not legally. The primary traveler, you, is the only one who can authorize major changes or cancellations. Even if they updated some info, the control is still yours." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of power returning to me. "So, I can still cancel it." Leah smiled. "You can cancel it, change it, or transfer it. It's all up to you." Jade leaned back, a smirk spreading across her face. "Looks like the trip they stole from you still belongs to you after all." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop screen, going over every email and confirmation again. Leah was right. My name was everywhere. The main traveler, the billing contact, the booking authority. Everything that mattered had to go through me. The more I thought about it, the clearer my plan became. I wasn't going to confront them again. I wasn't going to beg for my place at a table that didn't want me. No, I was going to take back what was mine. Quietly. Efficiently. Completely. The next morning, I called the travel agency. I told them there had been a change of plans, and that I wanted to adjust the reservations. They didn't question me. I transferred all 4 flights into my own solo booking, upgraded my seat, and redirected the hotel reservation to a smaller, private villa. Still in Maui, but under my exclusive stay. Then, with a steady voice, I requested the agency to cancel all added extensions that my family had sneaked in after the original booking. There were fees for the changes, but I didn't care. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about control. When I hung up the phone, I sat there for a long moment, staring at the confirmation email that had just come through. My trip. My name. My piece. I didn't tell Jade right away. I didn't tell anyone. I just smiled to myself, imagining the looks on their faces when they found out. For the first time since that dinner, I felt calm, because now the power was finally mine again. The morning of their big trip finally arrived. I woke up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to be awake to witness it all unfold. My phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand, the screen lighting up again and again with my mother's name. I let it ring twice before finally answering, my voice calm and steady. "Delaney," she shouted the moment I picked up. "What did you do? Our tickets aren't working. The airline says there's no reservation under our names." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "That's weird," I said softly. "Maybe it's because I'm not on the trip." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds before her voice rose again. "Don't play dumb. The hotel said everything was canceled. What is going on?" I smiled, looking out the window at the clear blue sky. "You know, Mom, it's funny. You told me not to make things a big deal. So I didn't. I just made other plans." She gasped, furious. "Delaney Quinn, you fix this right now. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused?" "Oh, I do," I said, my tone calm but sharp. "Do you have any idea how much trouble you caused when you excluded me from the trip I paid for?" Before she could respond, I hung up. Not even a minute later, my phone started ringing again. This time it was Evan. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Delaney, what the hell did you do?" he snapped. "Mom's losing it. The airline says everything was canceled under your authority." I almost laughed. "Under my authority," I repeated. "That's right, because it was my booking, my payment, my trip." He went silent for a moment before muttering, "You're being selfish." That word, selfish, hit me like a slap. The same family that had used my money and left me behind was now calling me selfish. I felt the anger rise in my chest, but I didn't let it show in my voice. "You all taught me how to put myself last," I said quietly. "Now I'm just doing the opposite." Then I ended the call. The messages poured in after that, texts, voicemails, even missed calls from Dad. I didn't read or listen to a single one. I just blocked them all. Then I picked up my suitcase, already packed and waiting by the door, and walked out to my car. The drive to the airport felt peaceful, almost surreal. I parked, checked in, and when the plane finally took off, I looked out the window at the clouds below me. For the first time in my life, I felt completely free. No guilt, no begging, no trying to fix people who never cared to fix anything themselves. Just me, the ocean waiting, and the sweet silence of taking my power back. The first morning in Maui felt strange, too quiet, too calm. The kind of peace that almost scared me because I wasn't used to it. I sat on the balcony of my ocean view suite, a cup of coffee in my hands, staring at the waves that rolled and crashed like they were breathing for me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to worry about anyone else's feelings. No one to please. No one to convince that I was worth including. But that silence also had weight. Every now and then my chest tightened, remembering how easily my own family had turned me into an outsider. I should have been lying on a beach beside them, laughing and taking photos, but instead, I was here alone. And even though this island was paradise, it still carried the aftertaste of betrayal. For 2 days, I barely spoke to anyone. I spent hours walking barefoot along the shore, the water tugging at my ankles, the salt drying on my skin. I cried quietly once, not because I regretted what I did, but because I realized how much I had tolerated just to keep the peace. On the 3rd day, while having breakfast by the pool, I met an older couple, Martha and Jim. They asked if they could share the table since the restaurant was crowded, and I agreed. Within minutes, their warmth melted through my walls. They told me about their 50 years together, about how love only grows when both people water it equally. Martha looked at me kindly and said, "Sweetheart, sometimes the people who share your blood don't share your heart. And that's okay. You get to build your own family, the one that chooses you back." Her words hit deep. I didn't tell them the whole story, but they seemed to understand the ache behind my smile. When they left, Martha squeezed my hand, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel invisible. That night, I opened a blank journal I had bought at the airport. Page after page, I poured out everything. The anger, the pain, the small girl inside me still begging to be loved. I wrote until my hand cramped, until I realized something powerful. I had spent years trying to earn love from people who were only comfortable taking from me. The revenge, canceling their trip, watching karma unfold, it felt satisfying, yes. But the clarity it gave me afterward was even more freeing. I finally understood that love isn't something you have to buy, beg for, or prove you deserve. On my last evening, I stood by the shore, letting the sunset paint my skin gold. I whispered a quiet goodbye, not to Maui, but to the version of myself that kept chasing validation. The ocean roared back softly, as if agreeing. I smiled. For the first time, it wasn't bittersweet. It was peace, pure and earned. When Delaney's flight touched back down on the mainland, she felt lighter, like she'd left the old version of herself somewhere between the waves of Maui and the sky. Her phone had been off the entire week. Now, as it buzzed endlessly with missed calls and frantic messages, she simply watched the screen light up, her expression unreadable. She already knew what kind of chaos was waiting for her. By the time she got home, the storm had fully hit. Her mother, Margot, had left 8 voicemails, each angrier than the last. The first few sounded almost pitiful. "Delaney, what did you do? They won't let us board the connecting flight. Please fix this." But by the end, Margot's tone had turned icy. "You humiliated us. Everyone's talking. Do you realize what you've done to this family?" Tom, her father, had sent one short text. "We're home. We need to talk." When they finally sat down face to face, Margot looked exhausted but defiant. "You humiliated us, Delaney," she repeated, as if the words could somehow shame her daughter back into submission. "Do you realize what people will think? We lost nearly $10,000 because of you." Delaney folded her arms, her tone calm and deliberate. "Funny. That's about what I paid for the trip in the first place." Her mother blinked, stunned by the sharpness of her words. Tom stayed quiet, his eyes heavy with guilt but too cowardly to defend her. Margot pressed on, voice trembling. "We're family. You don't do things like this to family." Delaney tilted her head slightly. "You're right. You don't exclude family from a vacation they paid for. You don't treat them like they're invisible. You taught me something, Mom. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who respects you." The silence that followed was thicker than any argument. Later that evening, Evan showed up at her apartment, red-faced and frustrated. "You didn't have to take it that far, Del," he snapped. "You ruined everything. Hannah called off the engagement, said I should have stood up to Mom. Happy now?" Delaney didn't flinch. "Maybe I am," she said quietly, "because now you finally know what it feels like to lose something you thought you controlled." He stared at her for a long moment, his jaw tightening before he turned and left without another word. After that, there were no more calls. No more guilt trips. Just silence, the kind that felt like freedom. Delaney deleted their numbers one by one. She didn't block them out of spite. She simply didn't need the noise anymore. For years, she had been the one holding her family together, paying bills, organizing holidays, smoothing over conflicts. But now, as she sat by her window that night, sipping tea and feeling the quiet peace of her own company, she realized something simple but powerful. She didn't lose a family. She just walked away from people who never really were one. Months later, Delaney's life looked nothing like it used to. Her days were quiet but full. The kind of peace she had always wanted but never knew how to find. She had moved into a cozy apartment high above the city, where sunlight poured through big windows each morning and painted her living room in gold. The rent was expensive, but it was worth every cent because it was hers, her space, her peace, her rules. She no longer checked her phone, expecting messages from her parents. The silence that used to sting now felt like freedom. She'd learned to enjoy her own company. Cooking for one, listening to music, dancing barefoot across her living room without worrying about judgment. Every small joy felt like a quiet act of healing. Jade still came over every weekend, arms full of takeout and stories. They'd laugh for hours, sometimes about the ridiculousness of it all. The Maui trip, the dinner confrontation, her family's audacity. But other times, they sat in comfortable silence, sipping coffee and simply existing. Delaney no longer needed to talk about what happened. She had already made peace with it. Work had become better too. Her boss noticed her renewed energy and promoted her to senior lab technician. She took time off whenever she needed, not to plan someone else's happiness, but to chase her own. She started traveling again, small trips at first, hiking trails, quiet beach towns, art museums in new cities. Traveling alone didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like reclaiming her space in the world, one destination at a time. Then one afternoon, as she sifted through her mail, she noticed something that made her heart pause. A postcard. The picture on the front stopped her cold, Maui. The same stretch of beach she'd once dreamed of sharing with her family. She turned it over slowly. Her mother's handwriting filled the back, the same loops and curls she'd memorized since childhood. "We miss you. We were wrong. Maybe we can start again someday." Delaney stared at it for a long time. There was no anger this time, no pain either, just calm understanding. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. Some distances existed for a reason. She took a deep breath, walked to her dresser, opened the top drawer, and slid the postcard inside without reading the rest. She didn't need to go back. She didn't need them to understand. She had found her peace without their approval. That night, as the city lights flickered outside her window, Delaney sat by herself with a cup of tea, watching the skyline glow. She thought about everything she had lost, and how it had led her here, stronger, freer, untouchable. A soft smile crossed her lips as she whispered into the stillness. "They went on a trip without me once. Now I'm the one who never came back." Do you think Delaney made the right choice by cutting her family off for good, or should she have given them another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.